SPIRITBOX are back, although you could argue they've never even been away. Tsunami Sea is out now. Album number 2 from the Canadian progressive metalers. Let's dive into it and let's find out how it is. I'm Dewsbury from Primordial Radio, and joining me is my brother from another mother, Mr. Pete Bailey, also of Primordial Radio. We are going to go through this album track by track and give it a listen, see what we think. All right, let's get into it. Track number 1 on the album, Fata Morgana. It is a hell of an album opener. There's an almost sludgy riff in there with some kind of almost understated whammy pedal action. If you could ever call a Digitech whammy understated, I like it. It is kind of setting the mood for the album. Pete, would you concur with that?
Yes, and I'm two things. I'm glad that you introduced the name of this track, because I read it earlier. I was like, Fata, but like, how the hell do you even say that? So thank you for that, because it's well known that I struggle with pronunciation. So appreciate that. Production-wise, in terms of how it sounds, it reminds me of Korn's Untouchables album.
Oh,
tracks like Thoughtless and Here to Stay. A lot has gone into this on the production. I thought, yeah, great way to open up the album. And you know what was really cool as well? This is not so much you're getting on a lot of metal albums these days. Dynamic range.
Oh, goodness. What you're saying is that is the loudness war over?
No, I wouldn't go that far. But it was nice for the brick wall just to come down ever so slightly in moments of this track, and really, really strong way to open up the album, I thought.
And it goes straight into track number 2, Black Rainbow, which I have my notes here. Heavy as balls, bit of a rager. Tell me I'm wrong, man. Tell me I'm wrong.
You're definitely not wrong. What I was thinking, though, is as the song begins, I thought there was like a really good suspense and build up on this track. And my main thought was like, oh wow, this is going to be one of those live songs. Mm-hmm. This is going to be one of those songs that I think they're going to be opening their shows with. It just has that big building feel that you can see it being the opening to the track being played in the dark, and then the boom as it kicks in.
The atmospherics and the pads kind of fill in all the gaps, which makes the sound incredibly dense, but you can still pick things out that are in there. It's not like it's like all kind of mushy together. The production, as you said earlier on this album, is excellent. Black Rainbow, a fantastic second track on the album, which leads into one of the tracks that we've already heard, Perfect Soul. So cover up the way. Perfect Soul sounds, well, it's almost kind of more standard radio-friendly metalcore.
Yeah, I think this is the tracks like this and some of the other moments, and perhaps other factors come into play when bands are thinking about new albums. Having worked in radio for many years, the pair of us, we know that bands do focus on radio tracks. So it does feel like this song has been kind of written, perhaps was written with that in mind. It is a lot more melodic. I think it was the second single. It's got 6.7 million Spotify streams at time of recording, so it did very, very well. It feels like a bit of a hard break, a little bit.
There is a jarring difference, isn't there, between tracks 1 and 2. Then as you kick into Perfect Soul, it's like, oh,
yeah,
this is a different vibe.
One thing that we've always liked to do is try and deduce what tracks should be singles, particularly if we're lucky enough to hear an album before it's released and go, I think that's going to be a single. I think that's going to be a single. And honestly, my feeling is that there are tracks on this album that I think that perhaps should have seen the light of day before the album came out over some of the singles they did put out. Perfect Soul, it's a good song. I feel like just where it sits in the album, it sits a little bit in isolation, perhaps.
Although that said, we get to track 4, Keep Sweet. I've written down here, could well be a single. It is. There is some beautiful, haunting, clean vocals from Courtney LaPlante. There is a lot of throat-shredding screaming on this album, but mixing that in with the undeniably beautiful heartbreakingly gorgeous, clean vocals that Courtney LaPlante is unbelievably good at. Keep Sweet is one of those that hasn't yet been a single, but definitely could be for me.
I actually thought as the track kind of sort of builds and speeds up a little bit, to me it had a little bit of a That's the Spirit kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Because at that point, in Breamy's career, they'd had their sempiternal moment, and then That's the Spirit was where they were really starting to try and create songs that would fill bigger rooms, tracks like Drown and stuff like that. And this isn't that, but it feels like it's the first dipping of the toe, perhaps, maybe in that direction. I don't know. There was something about this track where I just thought, that's got it's SPIRITBOX undoubtedly, but it had a slightly different feel to it for me.
Which then goes from track number 4, Keep Sweet, into track number 5, one of the singles that we've already had, Soft Spine, and immediately we are back to Heavy as Balls territory.
Yeah, I mean, so this was the first single that came out. So it's got 9.2 million Spotify streams. And again, actually, when you think about the 2 tracks that just sort of preceded it, 2 very melodic tracks, this track also kind of feels like it sits in isolation again.
It's kind of back to heavy. You're like, whoa.
Yeah, it feels like, as you're going through the album, it feels like the singles were written as such. And then maybe they built the album around these singles, but they seem different. They have totally, they don't seem fully connected, perhaps. But that's just how I'm sort of interpreting it at the moment. But yeah, it's the holy roller of this album.
Yeah, all right. Which brings us to the title track, Tsunami Sea. There is a common theme of a kind of an aquatic vibe throughout this album, if I can call it that.
Well, you'd hope with an album title like Tsunami Sea.
There is.
there would be something like that.
And it, relating to, I'm presuming, like the anxiety and depression issues that Courtney LaPlante has herself faced and is very public about that. It's very easy to draw a parallel and paint pictures with those kind of words and that kind of imagery. What do you think?
Well, so for me, when it comes to title tracks, right, for me, title tracks, I've always thought, should be the track that is indicative or representative of the album as a whole. I'm thinking just off the top of my head, probably one of the best examples of that would be Master of Puppets. The song represents the album.
Yes.
There's lots going on, the riffs from the melodies and all of that. Like Tsunami Sea, in that sense, perhaps doesn't represent some of the heavier sides of the album. So it's an interesting track to be the title track. They've got such heaviness, but then such melody at the same time, and them naming Tsunami Sea the title track and it being more melodic track, to me suggests perhaps overall that might be the general direction of where the band wants to go. Yeah,
I'd go with you with that. Which brings us to track 7, A Haven with Two Faces. There is so much going on. You've got the guitar, bass and drums playing the rhythm. You've got melody guitars in there. You've got atmospherics. You've got synths. You've got stuff in the background. And it can be very difficult to make out what is going on because there's so much of it, I
mentioned Master of Puppets earlier in terms of title track. The intro of this song, that haunting sound reminded me of Welcome Home Sanitarium.
Yes, it feels strange to be drawing a Metallica comparison. It was 1986 that Master of Puppets came out. So we are comparing a brand new album with something that is 39 years old. Oh my days.
Oh wow, that means next year is going to be the 40th anniversary. Wait, no, is it? Yeah, it will be 40 years for Master of Puppets next year. Oh, good Lord.
I remember being at Download when they Download Festival.
The 20th anniversary.
The 20th anniversary playthrough of it. Like, oh my Christ.
Excuse me while I just go lay down and die.
Yes.
I'm so old.
Well, I've gone senile now. We'll shift you off to a home, Grandpa. Oh. You draw comparisons. You can't help but compare something new that you hear to something that you have previously heard and loved. And I completely agree that cleanish guitar tone with the vibe is quite sanitarium. Now, when SPIRITBOX dropped the next track, No Loss, No Love. Nick Nocturnal did a reaction video online. He described it as SPIRITBOX's heaviest song yet, which may well have been correct at time of speaking, but probably isn't now that the rest of the album's dropped. But in that YouTube video, there was a great comment. And I know the generally accepted rule is don't read the YouTube comments, but I read this one and it made me laugh. It was somebody called Gatling216 commented, "There's 4 types of SPIRITBOX song. Spoopy vibes, my depression makes me melancholic and profound, my depression makes me dance, and your God will sort you when you die." I'm like, that is possibly the most accurate YouTube comment I have ever seen. And I think Nick was right saying, up to that point, possibly SPIRITBOX's heaviest song, which you could not say about track 9 on the album, Crystal Roses. I'm going to go on record saying this is my favourite track on the album.
I thought it might be. I was like, Jesus, definitely going to pick this one as his favorite. Actually, it should be said, a shame that it got leaked / released early by the label. I can see why Courtney was upset by that. So the track was put out, I think, what would it have been, 4 days before release, and I can see why they wanted to keep that as a surprise on the album and not put it out as a single because, well, first of all, it's very electronic. For me, there's huge drum and bass vibes going on that, which I was not expecting.
Yep.
And I like surprises. I do like to be surprised. Don't get me wrong. There are some bands where you just want what you want, AC/DC, etc. But SPIRITBOX is not that band for me. I like to be surprised. I like to hear evolution and things being a little bit different. So, yeah, I can see why they kind of pulled rank a little bit, yanked the song back off Spotify, and put it back up or whatever. But it's that's a very, very interesting song. I'll be intrigued to see how often that makes it into the set list.
SPIRITBOX does breakbeats. And I am absolutely here for the drum and bassy, trancey kind of vibe that goes along with this one. It's 2 whole minutes, like 2/3 of the track's runtime, until you get any kind of guitars and drums actually kicking in. And even then, this whole track has the feeling of a gorgeously produced interlude. I listen to a lot of Periphery, and you know that Misha and the guy, they are well into their interludes, just kind of musical ways of getting from one thing to another. And this track feels like an interlude, but at the same time, a whole with a W of its own, which I'm absolutely here for.
It's their song to take a break.
Yeah.
they're gonna have a drink of water and wipe themselves with a towel. That's what that song is for.
Yes, I could see that live. I'm just here for. I really like it. Same as track 10 on the album. Weirdly, this feels like almost like a traditional song. It just kind of feels like a normal song, like it's
well,
not
it's a slower song for to first and foremost is actually that was the thing that I liked about it was that after everything else going on with the album, I thought actually this is a nice pace of change, and I wonder those 2 tracks back to back, because bands do this. They build songs with the live show in mind. They do that now more than ever, particularly if you've got production and thinking about big production. You'll be thinking about the kind of songs that you want to put out there, and I could see them doing those 2 tracks, Crystal Roses and Ride the Wave, back to back, just to kind of bring the tempo down just a little bit of a break for the band, a little bit of a break for the audience, to then ramp it right back up.
Yeah. Catchy with some amazing clean vocals from Courtney, which comes to the final track on the album, Deep End, which feels like a final track on an album should.
Very long outro, as I know that you love those in the world of radio.
Thing is, I am here for it on this track. So it's got that vibe. The album, as you say, Pete, has been kind of melancholic. There is a melancholic vibe to the tracks as you go through them. But then you get to the final track and you can end on a positive note. That acoustic, atmospheric ambience at the end,
Yeah.
perfect. That is how you end an album. SPIRITBOX, well done. I'm absolutely in love with this album.
So for me, I haven't actually rated an album out of 10 in a very, very long time, but 8 out of 10 for me.
I'd go 8.5. I've never rated an album in my entire life out of 10 at all, but if I had to, I'd say 8.5.
Ultimately, if you're a SPIRITBOX fan, you're going to love it.
Yeah, that's it. If you are a SPIRITBOX fan, you will love it.
And I think as well, just a final wrap up, final thought, I do think that this album will take them to that next level, push them into being an arena level band.
You heard it here first.
Primordial Radio.